Hi, welcome back. Everyone's favorite series, also known as Times That I Scrutinize BookTok Boyfriends for Our Benefit, so hopefully you don't date one. Peter Kavinsky. Cheers. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Or welcome if you're new. I'm Grace. Normally, I am talking about the stuff on my shelf. Books. But not today. Oh, no. Today is one of my favorite series, BookTok P.D. Welcome back to episode 4. Yes. And we are going to be talking about Peter Kavinsky from Jenny Han's series To All the Boys I've Loved Before. You might have heard of her new series, The Summer I Turned Pretty. If you haven't been hearing about season 3, you're probably living in a bunker. So, in case you're unfamiliar with the series, it is where I read people's opinions about the series. I discuss my own opinions about the series. To All the Boys I've Loved Before is about a girl named Lara Jean who has written letters throughout her life to the boys that she has been in love with. And her sister accidentally mails them. Well, intentionally mails them. She mails them entirely on purpose. Aww. You can't tell, but my dog Zachary is right down there. Let me see if I can get a shot of him. Hello. Hi, Bobble. He's my filming buddy. Gives me tips. Okay, that's not a good angle. She mails out the letters, and one of them is to Peter Kavinsky, the most popular guy in school, who also happens to be dating her nemesis, Genevieve. Now, I've read the books. I have watched the movies. I am qualified here. In the book, he's written like a real guy in high school would behave, and he was planning on meeting Jen in the hot tub before Lara Jean showed up because he didn't know she would. He should have told LJ everything up front so there wouldn't have been so much confusion. Someone said, yes, I was team John Ambrose in the book and the movie. A lot of people are saying that he's a realistic reflection of a typical high school guy, how high school guys would behave. We got into a rant, folks. I found a rant. Here we go. I hated that Lara Jean ended up with Peter. I started the movie open-minded to how it would progress and what kind of ending it would be. But I ended it with a WTF kind of ending was that. Peter stuffed up so hard in the relationship, and it felt like they had no chemistry. And just all of a sudden, all is forgiven because Jen's parents are splitting up. Doesn't change the fact that he lied to her constantly and they genuinely didn't seem like a good couple. John Ambrose, I felt, was a perfect match for her and seemed the opposite of Kavinsky, and maybe that's what Lara Jean needed. I don't know, I just loved John Ambrose's character. I don't like the fact that they made him so great for her and she still chose Peter. I'm not too surprised. I've got all 3 of the books, so I knew the likely ending before I even started, yet it doesn't change my view. I wish she ended up with John. Not gonna lie, I was in love with LJ and Peter in the first movie, but in this one she just seemed so much better without him. Every time he came on screen, I knew he was either going to confess something bad to her again, or come up with some BS excuse to stay with her. Where's Margot's good sense when LJ needs it? Anyways, in conclusion of this rant, Peter was an a-hole, and John Ambrose was a gorgeous human being who deserved better. Heart emoji. This rant is very funny, you know? Because to be honest, I've always found Peter Kavinsky to be an accurate reflection. An accurate reflection of the average high school guy. Why didn't he tell Lara Jean that we all established that Gwen, we all established that Gwen was the one that filmed them in the hot tub, right? Was that one of Peter's friends or not? I don't know. So if Jen filmed Lara Jean in the hot tub with Peter, then why did Peter not really care? Like, also, maybe I'm biased because, I mean, John Ambrose is played by Jordan Fisher, who was basically one of my favorite Disney guys back in the day. I mean, for 8-year-old Grace, Jordan Fisher really had it going on, you know? I think the idea is that she and John Ambrose are better off as friends. They had a lot more in common and they had history as friends when they were little, but Laura Jean and Peter were perfect for each other because they fell in love with each other over the course of their fake relationship. It just seemed like it was meant to be. All the mistakes that either Peter made or Laura Jean made were because of Laura Jean's inexperience with relationships. I thought it was pretty cool that Peter could be friends with Jen and Laura Jean could be friends with John Ambrose and with Jen and still be with Peter. Personally, I stan. Someone said, thank you, I agree. So it's pretty divided between John Ambrose or Peter Kavinsky. I think they just didn't know how to handle a mature relationship because they're too young. Definitely. Peter Kavinsky tell Laura Jean that he knew that it was Jen. He didn't really stand up for her the way that he should have. Yeah, they had that hallway thing where it was like, oh, he stood up for her, but that's not really the same thing. I think that it's important that John Ambrose is, yes, he's perfect, but you can't just fall in love with perfect. You also have to fall in love with someone's flaws. And you also, sometimes history as kids is not enough to sustain a relationship. You can be best friends when you were little, but that doesn't mean you have anything in common now. And I feel like I feel like Laura Jean and Peter really balance each other out well. You know, he's extroverted, she's more introverted. They balance each other out and complement each other very well in different ways. And I feel like that's what makes their relationship more mature than hers with John Ambrose. Does Peter Kavinsky fandom show how low our standards are for men? We know this is going to be good. The positive side to this story is Peter, a wanted ideal character who raises the bar by being emotionally open and caring in his relationship. That's something we all aim for, and from what I've seen, it's being shown more and more on series for young audiences. But something that's bothering me for a while is the lack of substance in the character depictions. Sort of like the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, the ideal woke guy tends to exist in media just to fulfill the lead's emotional needs. Always in control of themselves, rarely care to bother or stress the lead, stay defeated, or break down in isolation. Contrast this to real life, where even if we open ourselves up, we still have insecurities, stall decisions, take our time, break down, have a crisis, get depressed. Do you think that the media is idealizing these woke guys, and is this actually healthy? Ooh, this is getting good. I don't think that MPDGs, do not know what those are, or woke guys or any other such characters are necessarily bad. It just sucks when they're the only decent characters in a given genre or medium. This is a problem because of the purpose of such characters, their fan service for particular demographics. Oh, MPTG is Manic Pixie Dream Girl. I just remembered that. An author who writes MPTGs isn't writing them for women, he's writing an imaginary girlfriend for his straight male readers. By itself, that's fine, but if he and all the other authors writing in the genre don't write any actual playable character that women can relate to, then that effectively alienates female readers. You can relate outside your gender, but the less you have in common, the harder it is. I think that whether such idealized character tropes are healthy or not depends on whether you look at them as minor characters or supposedly complete depictions of a realistic or sympathetic people. Looking at them as they are, essentially just props for other characters, I'd be more lenient on judging them. But I do think that we should push for more reasonable side characters and, more importantly, to have good main characters of all kinds properly written for all demographics. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that it's kind of unfair to be like, this character represents all men. The last episode of BookTok P.D, in case you haven't watched it, I'll link it below, about Gail Hawthorne, went into this whole deep conversation about how Gail and Peter represent two different corners of masculinity, basically. And Gail is more traditionally masculine, Peter is like softer masculinity, and all this kind of stuff. It discusses that. Was not expecting Peter Kavinsky to be able to take an angle on that, but is he basically the Manic Pixie Dream guy? Is he too realistic? Is he not realistic enough? As a writer myself, because if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I am a writer. That's actually my book right there. And I've written male characters. I try to make them three-dimensional beyond just gender archetypes or stereotypes of how teenage boys behave. I try to make them layered in the sense that you can tell that they feel things. Maybe they don't always express it the right way, but they learn and they try. And so do girl characters. Like, I feel like some of this is a bit overkill when it comes to Peter Kavinsky. They're like, what, 16? They're juniors in high school or whatever. Lara Jean makes mistakes too. She doesn't have a lot of experience with relationships, so she makes mistakes. But, that's seen differently than when Peter Kavinsky makes mistakes. And I just don't really love the idea that every character needs to be a perfect representation of everything. I think that sometimes you can just have characters be what they are. That's what makes them so relatable. Like, if you think about it, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is one of the most popular teen rom-com movie series, and then, The Summer I Turned Pretty is one of the most popular teen series. I think that we won't understand how popular these movies are until we get down the road and see that nothing of that quality is being put out anymore. And that popularity and zeitgeist that they had, I don't think we'll realize that until later on how legendary those really were. It's much easier to judge it in the present, and then later on you're like, oh yeah, that actually was really good. And I don't really see that anymore. I think it's really easy to judge it in the moment and forget about that later on. You kind of see through harsher lenses early on. For my final thoughts, is Peter Kavinsky a Manic Pixie Dream Boy? No. Is he toxic, manipulative, the usual charges? Also no. Is he perfect? No. But I think out of all the guys that I've covered, Gail, Jeremiah, Edward, I think he's one of the better of the bunch. I think that he and Lara Jean fit together so well in a way that you don't see a lot of rom-com characters do. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming back to the bookshelf to hang out with me. I had a lot of fun filming this one. Have to say, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is one of my favorite movie series. I find myself rewatching it a lot. I have all the little special editions, and I can't wait to get the third one and complete my series. Complete my collection of that one. If you haven't checked out my other BookTok P.D episodes, you have to. You have to catch up. You have to catch up on the series because you haven't even met Detective Dentacleo yet if this is your first time here. But don't get me wrong, I am so glad you're here. So make sure to follow me on social media, like, subscribe, hit all the buttons, and leave me a comment about what you think about Peter Kavinsky. I could be completely wrong. Who really knows? And I will see you next time for the next episode of BookTok PD.